Well. Good morning, Kimber.
Good morning,
It is
Thunder.
a bright, sunny, well, minus the thunder in the background, a bright, sunny, hot day in the south. I don't know about where you are.
Here in South Dakota, I woke up to rain. Just rain, gloom.
All right. Yeah.
Completely different vibes.
Yeah,
Don't
totally
you
different.
think?
We're yin and yang right now, but that's all right.
It's
Well, we
cool.
have we have a handful of things to talk about today. One is you'll notice that Bob's not here. That's because his Stormwatch contract says he can only work like 15 minutes a week. And so since we
Oh,
went to 45 minutes last week,
yes.
he's out for like 3 weeks. So he's tapped out, like he's timed out. So
Done.
we got you got the B team today.
Go team.
Yes. So we had several, like we were kind of talking before we got on live here, and we have a lot of like updates and a lot of things that maybe you've missed if you've been super busy in the last week. So we're just gonna get right into it. And Kimber, I'll pass it off to you because I know that you had a little brainworm about about a botnet that led you down a path.
I just think it's really interesting. At the end of March, there were some rumblings about a Android mobile botnet,
Yeah.
and our good man Bob did some digging, and he found that this is real. The Android mobile botnet is real. Um, oh, you know what? I can't share my little graph because I have not prepared appropriately.
Oh.
These things have permissions and stuff. But basically, we found that the the mobile traffic that we're seeing, at least in our data, is like trending upward. And we do this by enriching the IP source category and stuff, see what ASNs they're coming from, and we're seeing like an uptick starting at the end of March, which correlates with
Yeah.
the the articles that are out there about it's basically like a banking Trojan. Some people have attributed. There's probably like others out there that are proliferating, and we see, of course, China Unicom being like the top. The China Net backbone also huge carrier, but then up next is the Ariane cell service. So there's a pretty big variety of mobile providers in there. We don't see any United States providers in that top group. So it's a pretty good distribution geographically of what's going on. And it looks like it's remaining like a steady, it ticked probably the highest in April and then went down a little bit in May, but it's like remaining steadily high in June. And ultimately, this attributes to like, I think something like 10 to 15% of the traffic that we see. So, I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of like the entire internet and all of our traffic, like that's not a lot, but it it is pretty significant when you think about like, okay, you can attribute like 10 to 15% to like mobile traffic. So we're keeping an eye on it. They are out there, they are doing things, and like we can verify this. So
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not a large percent of traffic, but it is a large percent of its increase at the end of March into April,
yes,
and it's not like disappearing. So, um,
right. And I think that there's probably a couple of like this is purely like theory territory, but a lot of those providers use mobile routers that are vulnerable. So that may also be another thing that's going on there with some of these Mirai variants that pop out. And then there's that Android Trojan running through. I tried to see if there was an increase in our like Androids. We have a couple of scanning tags for Android devices, and we didn't necessarily see an increase in that. So that is also interesting.
yeah, totally. And this week, I mean, included in the Cov release, which is what we're about to pivot to, but there was a couple of uh, or sorry, not the cover release, but there was several updates for Apple products, iOS products last week.
Oh, that's another fun one to rabbit hole down if you have
Yeah,
any time. This iOS research that Kaspersky did.
yeah,
That
yeah. A lot of spyware related, some Russia NSA like,
yes,
talking over each other happening, um, which you, mobile malware is obviously very valuable. Um,
yes,
like very, very, very valuable. No surprise there. And then, we've had an interesting 36, 48, no, yeah, 48 hours or so in the Russian region of late as well. So, like
yes.
we will expect to see activity there coming out of,
Is people don't think about their phones all the time when they think about the internet, strangely enough, and like all of these malwares and things that are out there. But don't trust your phones, people. No, I'm just kidding. Just keep them updated. It's fine.
Yeah, keep them updated, and the normal things apply. Especially don't install things you don't know about. Don't click on links. All the normal stuff applies,
All the
but
normal
people get
stuff.
much more lax on their phone. And then, of
But
course, if you're
I'm
if you're a targeted person, then you need to be
yes,
really paranoid.
journalists, be careful.
Journalists, government workers, yes.
Yes. I am very interested to see with this Russia stuff that's going on. Not to like minimize it at all, it's a pretty big deal, but
Mhm.
anytime we see anything geopolitical, there's always the chance that we see messages like come across the wire like we'll start seeing broadcasts and user agents or just http gets that are either like propaganda messages or messages of like just f putin type stuff that
Yeah,
comes across
little
it's
hacktivism type
yeah, a
focused.
little bit of
Yeah,
hacktivism, so we can see that on a pretty wide scale and it hits the entire internet. So we
yeah,
can we'll see if we get any of those messages
yeah.
come
They're
through.
probably there. We just haven't picked up
Yeah,
that rock yet.
yeah. But keeping a lookout.
Yeah. Well, all right. So I mentioned the Kev earlier. Last week was a big week for the Kev. I know last Monday or Tuesday rather, actually, because Monday was a holiday for us. Um, you and I made a bet, so I think you owe me $1
I
um,
do.
about the Kev release timing. However, our friends at CISA apparently were watching and decided to one up us and have two releases, one on Thursday and one on Friday last week.
I did not bargain for that.
So there was 11 CVs in total. There was, some of the highlights there were the VMware, which has had the area, which I should share my screen here, has had plenty of attention. I can't talk and do this. So
The talking and clicking, and there's
yeah.
so many things to click.
Okay, cool. This has gotten a lot of attention. We, in a braggadocious way, we were able to essentially show the first signs of exploitation in the wild for this. But it ticked up, it's ticked down over the weekend, but we're expecting it to stay up for a little bit at least. It's been pretty valuable for attackers. Um, Additionally, there was a Zixel pre-auth, NAS pre-auth command injection vuln. We're working on a tag for that now, so we should have one out shortly. But again, Fortinet, Zixel, kind of really running with the headlines lately. So organizations that are using those devices, as you should have already been, but the guidance continues to be like stay on top of them, um, and consider controls for your controls basically.
Just security onion.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, what's old
Be
is
an
new again.
ogre.
Yeah,
Add more layers.
exactly.
I think on that VMware Aria, the IPs that we're seeing are all malicious.
Yeah.
Wow. From host wins. DN.
And
So
sorry, on that note actually, in the kev release was about roundcube email server, and I thought this was really interesting as well. Whereas, so roundcube, personally, I wasn't aware of this product. I think we talked about it before on this broadcast, but like, you learn about new products sometimes when bad things happen. um, but looking back through our data, we can see, one, this has been inventoried for quite some time, like at least well over a year. So it's known about by many. So Glenn's opinion doesn't really matter on that. But what is interesting is 100% of the IPs that we have found that we're exploring for the roundkeep web path, um, we're also tagged with like our environment file tag. So they're looking for, a lot of different types of configurations to pull from. So um, we made a change in the spring to identify these as malicious, and this is kind of a cool confirmation that that was the right decision to make.
Yeah.
But also, like, these IPs aren't necessarily just trying to do one thing. They're just obviously opportunistic and looking for whatever's hanging around.
Man, I am going to put out a call to action to people to join our community Slack, and
Yeah.
or literally just tag me on Twitter with um, software that you think that I haven't heard of or that Glenn hasn't heard of
Oh my
either,
gosh, that'd be
because
amazing. Yeah.
this whole the whole last 2 months has just been me like reading these advisories and being like, okay, what the hell is that?
Basically, yeah. If you're in education or like a specific industry that's like not, I guess it really doesn't matter what industry, but especially in those
Right?
industries, education, or maybe like you process paperwork for a automobile insurance industry, and you have to log into this thing every time to do anything. And
Yes.
you, like, when you started your job and you didn't know about that software, then other people probably don't either. So like, let us know what that is, because there's a really good research uh,
Yeah.
opportunity here.
And if it's something really good, I will even credit you in
Of course.
the references
Yeah, we love our
for the
community and we
town.
love sharing the wealth. I mean, it takes a village, so we're all in this together.
It does.
Um,
And like the amount of people that I found out knew about Move It because they've worked with government agencies, I was just like, guys, why have you never told me about this?
yeah, let
Round
us
Cube,
know.
not so much.
Let us
But
help you. Yeah, help us help you. Yeah, speaking of Move It, I mean, quick note on that. It's obviously continuing to grow. I read over the weekend like over 100 known, like, confirmed victim organizations with like 5 million, I think. I'm looking for my list real fast. I don't want to get it wrong. Anyway, several million records that were impacted
yeah,
by that
the amount of
by that breach.
records.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, by over 5 million. Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
that
Isn't
one's
that
going to be lasting
wild?
a while.
That is a much bigger number than I expected to hear from this stuff.
So here's an interesting thought as well, is thinking about the evidence so far has shown that that was, like, exploitation for that so far has gone back well into last summer. So well over a year more.
Right.
And so,
Right.
like, kind of applying that logic forward, um, what we're going to be talking about in June of 2024 is happening right now. And that's not like surprising, but it's also weird to think about in the present moment. So,
Mm-hmm.
these threat actors have already figured out what works. Obviously, they're sitting on them. They're wisely not trying to waste an O-Day on a low-hanging fruit, but eventually they'll get out there, right? And so that's another reason, actually, for your call to action there, that stuff is helpful, right, for folks to understand what software does exist, like what is submission critical, hides all your crown jewels, and maybe no one even knows that it exists. Like, that's what researchers need to know about to do the research on, to do the coordinated disclosures on. Like, for instance, actually, a shout out to Ron like he did some work for Global Escape EFT file transfer scanner, and disclosed some CVEs to them. And I mean that's a big deal, right? Like that coordinated
It
disclosure. So
is.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I think my rule of thumb for things is like if there is no Nessus scanner for it, or if there is no like Nmap thing for it, then it's probably something really interesting and really valuable. Like
yeah,
I don't think I mean probably Nessus identifies like these things are open. I could be totally wrong about that, but you know.
yeah. It's a bit of it's almost security through non-brand name recognition obscurity.
Right, right, which can be very valuable. But I remember, like, also it just depends on your like point of view from where you're at in the industry. Because I remember when I first started, I worked for a company that utilized Manage Engine
Yeah,
to rotate passwords and do some Windows management. So for those that don't know, it's a enterprise like Windows management software. It does a lot of things. It's one of those
there's a
kind
lot
of
of things.
all-in-one sort of
Password
things.
manager
Yeah.
or management. Sorry,
Um,
account management.
and I totally was like, I've never heard of this before. Like, this is some like wacky tool. Oh, sorry for the dog. And then I come into the wider industry, and it's like well known as this totally like broken product that has so many security vulnerabilities. And I was like, oh god.
Yeah, same.
So
Similar story there. Except my introduction was a vuln, and then researchers were like, "Oh yeah, this always like when it fails hard, and it fails in like fives. Like there's never one CVE that because they share a lot of components, which is not uncommon.
right.
But it's such a mission critical like system management software for many that like and they share components. So when there's one CVE, there's always like, 3 to 5 that follow it immediately. So it's, yeah, those are things
Yeah.
that are
And
instructors
I
like
try not
best
to
friends.
like I try not to dunk on people who are using it because it's like that stuff is
Yeah.
affordable. It's very affordable for these smaller industries. So it's just getting the word out, keeping them
Yeah.
updated.
Yeah. Another follow up from last week also was we talked a little bit about Apache Log4j because everyone loves to keep talking about that. But this will be quick. Really, just showing if we can show my screen here. We had kind of mused on the fact that like it has established a baseline of some sort over the past many months, and then boom, big spike. You're like, oh, what happened? And Kimber's like, I think it was the DBR, and we're like, that sounds right, Kimber. And now it's already kind of trickled back to its
This is
previous state. So
so
I believe
funny
that's
to
probably a
me.
pretty good correlation. Maybe not causation, but it's a
How
good correlation.
I'm I'm just gonna say very interesting correlation.
Yeah.
What a beautiful peak.
I mean, let's hope it goes back down. But even again, we can
Yeah.
beat that horse. But like, it doesn't matter if there's only one. It's a really bad one, as we know.
It's you know what, it's good for those new SOC analysts in the industry who weren't around for the original log4j to see those packets come through and throw off some alerts,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
in case you don't recognize it, like, hey, victory lap.
Next on the agenda is CISA had an advisory on this Advanced Tech RCnet ICS like monitor device. Again, things you don't really know about in your common everyday world because there's so many different jobs and types of industries out there. But reading the advisory, I mean, you can see offhand 9.8, and it's a hard-coded password phone, which um, that's hard, right? We understood why this used to happen. It stinks that it's still a thing, but when you start talking about ICS and IOC devices, the attacker value here can be immense. So these things often fly under the radar. So we want to just kind of call some attention to that in case this affects your organization. And let's see. I think that's all I have for visuals. However, in a little bit of a bone to pick type of vein, um, if you received a letter in the mail from UPS, read it carefully. Um, They had a data disclosure or a disclosure letter that was kind of disguised as more of a security awareness training um, type of letter, and so it accomplished the job. But I would just say, like, one, if you received it, look carefully. But two, it's a good time for reminders around, like, when it comes to communicating security incidents, look at kind of what you're really looking at trying to accomplish. Lean into it. Transparency is really key for keeping, retaining, gaining trust. And like, we don't want to like try to be not totally forthcoming in those situations. So I would just say, like, if you got it, take a harder look at it. But we want to see, those types of things be a little bit more clear, a little bit more
Yeah,
community friendly.
straightforward,
Yeah.
to the point, no metaphors. It is getting a lot of press as being the worst disclosure ever, which is kind of rough.
Yeah,
It's a
I
good.
doubt that. I wouldn't say that's true. I can think of worse, but
I can think of
like
much
non-disclosures would
worse.
be much worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like they told people, so come on, not the
Yeah.
worst.
Well, we can go with the be better mentality.
Yeah, and I think uh, some guidelines around like what data breach notifications should look like are just be straightforward.
Yeah, yeah,
Where,
totally.
how, when, hit all the basics, and
Yeah.
that's all you need to do, and provide some kind of, I don't know, free life lock.
I mean, it's like back to the bottom line up front kind of mentality. Like, you know, like,
Yeah,
I don't know how many people actually even look at the letters that they do get in the mail. So, like,
right, exactly.
let's see. So I think that really runs down my or the topics that we hit on in our
Yeah.
kind of pre-show meeting. I don't know if I missed any. Other
I
than that,
don't
I have
think
like
you
one
did.
like gray noise announcement if we're ready for that.
Oh, yeah, this is an important one. This is a very important one.
Do you want to do it?
It's all you. It's your, you know what, Glenn? This is your show, not mine.
Oh, don't say that, please. So, if you are, well, actually, you don't even have to be heading to Black Hat DEF CON in Vegas this year, but we will be putting on. There will be more details coming out shortly. A CTF titled Noise Fest, and we will be opening that up later this week, as you can see on the screen. So, link there,
I am
and
so hyped.
I mean, the graphics alone for it,
Oh my
like, are insane. So, like,
yes,
even
yes,
before it even
yes.
starts, it's already exciting. And that's shout out to Austin, one of our super awesome designers here at Grey Noise. But yeah, so
And we are
CTF.
we're
What's that?
doing so much plotting. Like
Yeah,
I'm so excited for the CTF and like what's going to come out of it and the opportunity to just show off some keycaps.
let's go. Yeah, so it will be starting the Friday. It's virtual. The CTF itself is virtual. Starting Friday, I believe. Before I should have the dates in front of me, but I don't. I think it's beginning on the 4th and running through the 11th, something like that.
Something
Um,
like that.
but it's kind of overlapping both cons. You don't have to be present, but then of course we will be having a thing on the evening of the 10th. So all those details
Mm-hmm,
can be found
mm-hmm.
online. So if you're there in person, look for that. If you're not there in person but you want to participate in the CTF and maybe dig into some networking PCAPs or something,
Mm-hmm,
um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
then you can do that virtually as well. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. Start getting hyped for Hacker Summer Camp. It's
Yeah,
real.
it is almost technically happening next month. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, we need a countdown. We need an official DEF CON countdown. I personally more hyped for DEF CON time, but also very hyped for B-sides.
Yeah.
One of the favorite things, Diana Initiative, like
Yeah.
so many good things.
Absolutely. There's a lot of of cons around the con, and then lobby con's always great too.
Always.
So
Cabana Con.
Cabana Con is great. Yeah, all these cons. So that was the big announcement, and then we will be pausing programming for 2 weeks as Grey Noise has a summer the first 2 weeks of July. Not like closed, because there are like some mission critical things that are continuing, but the company itself is overall like generally taking a break or working at a slower pace. So we will not
making sure people don't get burnt out.
Yeah, it's welcomed forced vacation, and it works really well. So when you have a bunch of nerds at a company that don't want to take time off because they love their job, you have to make them, and that's what this is, which is applauded.
Yes.
So
yeah, we'll be off for 2 weeks, and that'll be. We'll miss you so much.
I'll miss you so much. So many misses. Yeah. And then, of course, if anything breaking happens or whatever, we'll be doing our normal. Like I said, that's mission critical. So we'll be working on tags and blogs or whatever. So we're not going to miss any beats on the data protection side, just from a less meetings with less Zooms. So with that said, anything else, Kimber?
Nope. I think we nailed it.
All right, sweet. Well, I appreciate it, and we will see everyone in 3 weeks.
All right.